Hello, Namaskar. Welcome to my pod, the CAA Show. CAA, as all of you know, is Conversations and Analysis. My name is Juggi Bhasin. To become a subscriber of the show, all you have to do is to press that red button on your screen. And of course, on Instagram, you can join directly. And subscription is completely free. And we would really appreciate if you could share this video with your friends and with your colleagues. And you could also like this video. So, what have we been feeling the last few days? And I would like to start this podcast on an emotional note that we Indians, we have been through an entire range of emotions, starting from a sense of shock, a sense of disbelief, maybe a sense of fear also, uncertainty, slowly giving way to reassurance, and finally to this emotion of elation. And what am I talking about out here? I'm talking about the fact that our armed forces have made us so proud, that we are so proud of our armed forces, that tears come into our eyes when we think about what they have done for the country, how they have protected us. Just to give you an example, somebody like me who's sitting in Delhi, and I was doing a performance somewhere, and I suddenly got the news when I came home that the Pakistanis had fired a missile towards Delhi, which was intercepted in Sirsa. And can you imagine the shock, but also the sense of relief that our air defense systems were so strong, they were so on point, they were so on target that they destroyed that fast cruise missile midair. So, all kinds of emotions as Indians we have experienced. So, let us first acknowledge these emotions we have been through, and let us take pride in the fact that we have such capable and such competent and such professional armed forces who have made us proud in every sense of the word. Salute to our armed forces. Now, let's come to the nitty gritty of what has happened in the last few days. I'm not going to talk about the military matters because, honestly, yesterday and today, the DGMOs have actually very extensively, and I would say brilliantly, they have given presentations of both the offensive and the defensive. The defensive part was explained just a while back today. Operations which are carried out by our armed forces, especially by the Indian Air Force, and the huge success that we have met in that, and the huge success we have also met in blocking Pakistani air attacks, till a point has come today where quite literally, and I'm going to put it in very simple and layman terms, where the Pakistani Air Force is blinded. It can't take off, it can't land, it can't launch any great operations. 20 sites in Pakistan and Pakistan occupied Kashmir have been hit by the Indian Air Force. 9, of course, are the terrorist hideouts, but those 11 sites are the air bases which have been hit. In some places, runways have been completely damaged, hangars have been taken out. There's now news coming in that a very senior wing commander in the Pakistan in the PAF has been killed along with other airmen. Uh, the Air Force they've done a brilliant job, actually, if you think about it. All the air defense capabilities of Pakistan, of Chinese make, all the drones of Turkish origin, they've all been literally from our end. There's a word which I'm going to use now, they have been decapitated. Decapitated हिंदी में कहते हैं जिसका सर काट देते हैं. They have literally been decapitated, and right now the PAF, Pakistan Air Force, is, well, it's kind of blinded at the moment. And we of course hope that the DGMOs will continue the briefings in the days to come. But today in this podcast, I'm going to move actually beyond this, beyond military matters, because the podcast is not so much about military matters, because a lot has been said, as I said, on these military matters by the DGMOs. But I'm going to talk about what now is coming for us. And what is that which is coming for us? Uh, I think that these hostilities for the time being might have come to an end. They could, of course, start up all over again because Pakistan, being a completely mad country, I mean, nothing is beyond beyond the imagination of what they can do or what they even completely defeated what they are still liable to do. But let's be a little honest here. There is a possibility that things might settle down. Whether they settle down in this very uneasy, tension kind of calm and peace, yeah, sure. And whatever terms you want to call it with, this is certainly not a ceasefire from our end because we are still saying that Operation Sindoor is still active, it's ongoing. We have not put up our boots. We are very much on guard. We are very much prepared, and we have given the warning. The Indian government has given the warning that if you strike, goli ka jawab gola. That's the message which has gone to Pakistan. Now, those are military matters, but I was talking to you about the fact that what is coming next, and what is coming next is actually a battle that's going to be fought for the hearts and minds of the people, the information warfare. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that today because, in a certain sense, that becomes even more important because the military people, our armed forces people have delivered and how they have delivered. We have seen that. But now it is up to the civilians, it is up to our bureaucracy, it is up to intelligent people in the administration how they will cope with this information warfare. And I'm using that term deliberately. How that is going to happen. And I'll maybe give you a peek into the extent of how that will unfold and what we really need to do and what we should not be doing, a couple of things which we did even during this testing time. So let me take the bull by the horns and come straight to the issue. The issue of Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri. Let me first on record say that obviously we are all people on the outside, but from whatever one has read about the man, he is an extremely competent, a very intelligent, and the foreign secretary is an officer we can all be proud of. No question about it. So let's be absolutely clear about that. Now, unfortunately, there is a narrative which is going on. There are two narratives which are going on. One narrative is going on in the social media, where certainly a lot of people have trolled the foreign secretary for, within quote, some kind of inept communication during those critical 2 days. And then there are the television channels, news channels, who are defending the foreign secretary, Vikram Misri. It's a ugly battle because what is happening is that right now, and I don't know how many people are talking about this, but this is my analysis, that there is this cleavage which is occurring between the social media and the television news channels. And if it is happening, then to my mind, the reasons for that are absolutely clear. The reason for that is very simple, that the television news channels are maybe to some extent envious. They're not very happy of the mushrooming reach of these social media platforms, all kinds of social media platforms. So this is their chance to get back at them. And so, Vikram Misri, the case of Vikram Misri has become like a football, which is being, from one goal to the other, it is going on and on. But what is the truth of the matter? Let me give you my analysis. As I said before, the gentleman is a very competent, very able officer, and we are proud to have a foreign secretary like Vikram Misri. But is he a good communicator? I'm not too sure. And I'm being honest here, as a communication specialist myself, I have to say that the first day when Vikram Misri took the briefing along with two lady officers from the armed forces, I think that was a very good move. The initial bit was a very good move because there was a sense, there was a purpose behind it. We had to communicate of a sense of Hindu Muslim unity in the country, and therefore, the lady officer, a senior officer, a colonel is a very senior post. The lady officer, Captain Sophia Qureshi, is of course a colonel in the Indian Army and a very senior officer. And then you had Wing Commander Singh, again a senior officer. So that was a good move. And Mistry, of course, gave his interpretation of what had really happened. So far, so good. But then I think there was a bit of an issue because quite a bit of a gap happened because operations were certainly going on in between the next 2 days. And of course, there was a briefing the next day by Vikram Misri and the two lady officers, and then after that also. But to be honest, the briefings were not effective. And I'll tell you why. The reason for that is very simple. See, the gentleman is a bureaucrat. The gentleman is a thinking man. The gentleman is an astute administrator. Uh, Maybe communication is not really his forte. Maybe it's not his fault. Uh, but it did appear, and this is not trolling at all, but this is a very objective assessment, that at a time of great crisis, and this is really the whole nation was on the edge because all kinds of rumors were flying, all kinds of things were happening. And I'll tell you what was the nation expecting from whoever was communicating from the government. Uh, the foreign secretary's shoulders were a little slumped. He was looking down. See, as a communicator, you have to look in the eye. You can't look down. And he was reading some text from the paper, which again was not making too much of sense. There were just some kind of facts. They were neither here nor there. And it didn't also help that, again, the two lady officers were also reading from some kind of a text. Clearly, all three of them are not communicators. They're very able officers, all three of them, absolutely. But communication is not their business. It is not their forte. It is not their profession. That is absolutely clear. Now, what was the nation expecting at that time? Please remember, all of us, all we Indians, we have all been during those 48 hours, what was going on. There was a lot of tension. Uh, there was a lot of emotion. There was a lot of that. How are our forces doing? What are our armed forces doing? How are we coping up with this Pakistani channel? We were very, very emotive. And I have to say here that the foreign secretary's presentation came like as if he was addressing a Western audience, a Western, gaggle of pressmen, some very restrained way of speaking. See, as Indians, please understand this. We are a very emotive people. We are very emotional. And this was a hugely emotional, fearful moment for us where the entire country was on the edge. We needed to hear strong words of reassurance, strong words of the fact that our armed forces were on the job. They were at it. They were going hell for leather, as they say, after the enemy. We needed to hear that kind of a messaging. Okay? Of course, no need to share operational details. I completely understand our intelligence matters. But in other words, the communication should have been more emotional, forthright, better, looking in the eye, confident. That confidence should have been there from all the three officers. That was not there. And therefore, trolling is not the right word, but if criticism is coming your way, then whoever decided that these three officers would present the case of India to the world maybe wasn't the most brightest of moves in hindsight. Now, let's leave this matter. And of course, as I said, I'm repeating this again and again that the foreign secretary is a very able officer, but communication is not his business. And it is certainly not the business also of the other two lady officers who are very competent, I'm sure, in their professions, but communication is not their business. They serve their purpose in terms of showing a sense of solidarity of Hindu-Muslim unity, but that's it. It should have been left at that. Anyway, now what is coming for us? And we need to talk a little bit about that. Now, in the days, in the weeks, and the months ahead, what is really going to happen is this. This situation will settle down eventually over a period of time. But what is going to break out is an information warfare. The Pakistanis have shown competence in only one thing in this entire crisis, and that is that how nefarious they are in manipulating information. I think, they have mastered this art of taking footage, of taking sound bites, of taking clips, of taking pictures from all kinds of sources, assembling, reassembling them, and showing as if they won some great victory. I saw this absolutely hilarious video of this Pakistani cricketer. I think that Javed Miada's brother-in-law, forgetting his name now, waving to the crowds as if they won some great victory. They've actually lost, and they've lost so badly. But that's Pakistan for you. But you will find that information warfare coming at you in more and more devious methods and means. And we have to stop it. We have to put the brakes on it, and we certainly have to counter it. Now, leaving it only to social media to counter it, leaving it only to some better, sane voices on television news channels, is that the only way? I'm not too sure. I think the government should prepare a strategy. This is a good time to start thinking about it. The government needs to, I think, prepare a team. Uh, I'm sorry. In the old days, I don't know what's the system now. When I was a television correspondent, we used to have somebody called the principal information officer in the government, in the PIB. And that gentleman, excuse me, and that gentleman used to coordinate the activities of media persons, especially the better media persons. There have to be these interactions between the PIO, if the post of the PIO still exists. As I said, I'm not in the current run. I really don't know what's going on. But certainly there are officers from the government. Then you have to prepare some kind of a task force of people, whether you take maybe help from the outside, from people you can trust, media persons you can trust. Um, because two things, please remember, are very, very critical during this time. One is information flow. Misinformation, disinformation, or bad information or manipulated information, which is the forte of the Pakistanis, that is going to flow like anything from now onwards. We've seen not trailer, but we have seen episodes of that during these last 3 or 4 days. And you can imagine now what's going to come for you. All kinds of disinformation is going to peddle out because the Pakistanis are not going to admit that they have been beaten fair and square. That's never going to happen. Neither the Pakistani military is going to say that, neither the Pakistani political leadership, and certainly not the Pakistani public. So there will be all kinds of troller armies and all that. The danger is that yes, we can ignore them. We can keep banning their channels or stop their posts on Twitter and all that. But for how long? Eventually these kind of things have a way in this information age, they will leak out, they will resurface. Now the thing is, you have to counter it. Now you counter, how do you counter it? There are 2 or 3 ways. As I said, one is information flow. You set up this task force of people and you provide them information. After that, the dissemination of information is the responsibility of professional communicators. That's the key. Um, you can take the help of the military if there are very good communicators in the military, in the 3 wings of the armed forces. Well and good, wonderful. If not, nothing wrong in having patriotic media persons who speak well, who argue well. I can recommend a few names. Youngsters like Shivarur, for instance, of NDTV. He's done a really good job, the young man. People like him, put them in the task force, and these people should be communicating, and the military personnel are giving them the information. They're probably standing next to them or sitting next to them, but leave the communication to these people. There's nothing wrong with that. What happens is, there is a term which is used in international war journalism. It's called embedded journalism. Embedded journalism means that media persons from both print and television, and now, of course, the social media, they move along with the armies during times of warfare, but they only convey information which is given by the government. Now, if you consider this as a time of war in a certain sense, then the information is given by the government. Now let the professional media persons disseminate that information, of course, backed up by a senior military personnel. But nothing better if you find this talent of communication within the armed forces and their people are speaking, that will be even better. But the need of the hour is to have strong communicators who will convey the message a and B, who will convey information, the right information, the desired information. Because what had happened during these 2 days in between was there was this complete, almost this blackout of information from our side. And the space of the void was filled by this Pakistani manipulated information. They were all over. We have won this, we have taken this, we have bombed this, we have struck this airbase, and all kinds of nonsense, all kinds of manipulated, fabricated reports were filling the and see, banning something is a temporary measure. You can't keep banning things all your life. It's not possible. There's a certain point you can't ban all this. You have to counter that information. And therefore, the two-pronged strategy has to be that at least for the next 15 days, I would say, I would recommend, there have to be briefings every 6 hours by the military. Now, it's not possible for the DGMOs to keep on doing this all the time because they are very busy people, they're very important people, and obviously they are involved in policy making and all that. They are, they have actually the military to look after, and this is not really their job. So yes, they have done brilliantly yesterday and today, and maybe there might be some more briefings for the DGMOs, but eventually professional media persons, as I said, from within the private sector or from the government or from the military, they have to take center stage. That is the need of the hour. But the communication has to flow every 6 hours, round the clock for the next 15, 20 days, maybe even a month, maybe. Let me give you an example how effective this can be. Many of you are youngsters. I still remember the days of the 1971 war. I was a kid then. And we used to listen to this gentleman, an Anglo-Indian gentleman called Melville D. Mello. I think he was in the All India Radio at that time, and he used to give every night bulletins. They used to be called bulletins on Doordarshan, Melvin DeBello of the 1971 war. And they were a delight. Even then, I remember the manner of his presentation, the way he used to communicate in his gravelly voice, and the war, even though there were not too many visuals at that time and all that, and he used to just speak. It was maybe a 15 minutes, 20 minutes, or a half an hour program. I think it used to be called Perspective, if I'm not mistaken. And everybody used to look forward to that. That is the power of communication. The war would come alive for us. One is, of course, the Indira Gandhi, Sam Manekshaw, and all that was at one level. But the war actually came alive for the ordinary Indian at that time through Melvin T. Mello of his nightly broadcasts. Today we have podcasts. They used to be broadcasts at that time. But see the power of communication. And we felt so proud. And of course, people at that time, some people used to listen to the BBC. They still had some credibility at that point in time. And they've, of course, lost it completely now. But most Indians used to tune in to Melvin T. Mello. And therefore, I'm saying, I'm repeating this again and again, the need of the hour is to have these media spokesperson, telegenic people. They should look good on camera. They should look confident. They should look assured. They should know what they're talking about. They're well versed with both technical matters. They're well versed with both the operational matters without giving any operational secrets, of course. But above all, they are giving this messaging of hope, this messaging of reassuring, this messaging of that be proud as Indians, how our armed forces have, they have stood for the country. They have been in the forefront in this fight. That is a message which has to be given by these communicators, and that is the need of the hour. And therefore, um, The in hindsight now, let things rest. Let Mr. Vikram Misri go back to what he's really good at, handling the affairs of the foreign ministry. As I'm repeating again and again, the gentleman is a very able bureaucrat and we are all very proud of him. Now leave the communication in the hands of the professionals. Let the professionals now enter, because now is the time for the communication business to begin. Now is the time for the communication warfare to begin. That is what is going to happen next. Believe you me, that is the next challenge which is coming for India. And so, on this note, I come to the end of this podcast. I hope you really liked it. Until next time, it's goodbye and cheers from my end.